Greetings. I'm glad you came back. My name is Alfred Eugene Pearl. We're looking at the book of Revelation. In our first part, we covered the first chapter and the 7 letters to 7 churches in the second and third chapters, and we ended with the Church of Philadelphia. We had not yet looked at the final letter, the letter to Laodicea, which has a parallel in the period of church history where 501c3 corporate churches seem to be the order of the day. It's in the Bible it's said that many are called and few are chosen, but when you're talking about corporate churches, it could only be ascertained that a few are called and many are chosen. So let's go on. Why are churches gagged by the state? Well, what it comes down to is that God created man. Now, there will never exist a situation where man will rule over God, because the Creator is sovereign over his creation. When it comes to government, man created government. And because the Creator is sovereign over his creation, men rule over government. Government is a creation of man. And because all men are created equal, that is, equally obligated to obey the laws of their sovereign Creator, there does not exist a situation where one man has the right to rule over another, nor does a group of men have the right to rule over another. Even if they take a vote, a group of men cannot rule over another. So how do you extrapolate authority for a government to operate? Well, there are 2 valid sources of authority. There's the laws of man's sovereign Creator. If the laws of man's sovereign Creator are being administered, then that's a valid source of governmental authority. The consent of the governed is also accepted as a valid source of government authority. In other words, if the people get together and decide they want a constitutional republic, the Constitution becomes the contract between the people and the government. The government is a fiction, and therefore those in government are accountable to the people whom they govern. And the consent of the governed can be in the form of a constitutional contract, which might call for democracy where the majority rules, or a representative form of government where people represent an elected official who goes and represents their desires, or a parliament. Any number of government forms are valid so long as it's by consent. Now, the third source of government authority is not a valid source. It's the consolidation of arms against the disarmed populace, such as conquest or just plain old dictatorship, oppression. Of course, we call this tyranny. And nobody considers tyranny good except the tyrants. Now, we said that man created government, and therefore men are sovereign over government. Well, government created corporations. The government creates corporations. And because the Creator is sovereign over his creation, the government is more than happy to come up with regulations and statutes and codes and rules whereby corporations are governed by government. And of course, if a church comes to government hat in hand and wants the government to create them into a fictional entity at law called a corporation, the government's more than happy to create that a body of believers in their image, which is exactly what they do. Now, the created is governed, well, let's just put it the other way around. The government then, therefore, becomes sovereign over its creation. And the government, of course, does impose rules, regulations, statutes on corporations. Now, one day I was looking at the laws that govern corporations, specifically 501c3 churches, and I was flabbergasted. You know, there are permissions as well as prohibitions, but I was flabbergasted that there were 10 prohibitions, and I found that so poignant. I put them in the form of 10 commandments. So here are the 501c3 10 commandments handed down by government, prohibiting certain activities on behalf of 501c3 churches. Now, of course, this wording is all mine. Uh, these are actually much more wordy laws. I condense them and massage them around, so uh, the government didn't issue these. I just uh, rephrase them to make them shorter. But here they are nonetheless. This is the gist of them. Now, and of course, if you want to summarize them in one sentence, it's thou shalt not hold government accountable. And rightly so. The created is subject to the laws of his creator. And so it's not the place of the created to hold their creator accountable. Just like man doesn't hold God accountable, so churches that have become a 501c3 corporation should not hold the government accountable. The government is their lord, and thus the paradox. Christ is no longer the head of the 501c3 church. They are subservient to whatever the state, whatever laws, rules, statutes, regulations the government might put upon them, because the government has become their lord. Okay, this brings us to Revelation 4:1. We're now done with the 501c3 churches. We're done with the 7 letters to 7 churches, the 7 periods of church history. Now, as we move into Revelation 4:1, we're moving into the hereafter portion of Revelation. Now, to John, all these things were future. But to us, a lot of these things that were future to John are, we can look at in hindsight. I don't think there's another slide. Yeah, there is. Okay, good. Up next, hereafter. So this is the final slide. I should talk, we've got plenty of time, darn it. I wish I wasn't done so soon. Anytime somebody talks about future prophecy, it's always from the standpoint of speculation. Nobody can present anything more than a hypothetical model of future events. The danger of hypothesizing or theorizing about what prophecy means and how it's going to be fulfilled is that you become invested in your hypothetical model. And if it's wrong, then when the actual prophecies begin to be fulfilled, you're going to miss it. We often cite, well, I've heard pastors cite, the people living at the time Christ came. They were expecting the prophecy of Daniel to be fulfilled in a different way. Remember, Daniel saw the model. Oh, that we haven't covered that yet, I guess. Nebuchadnezzar had a dream, and he saw a statue made out of 4 different types of metal: a head of gold, shoulders and arms of brass. Geez, now I'm getting it all wrong. The head was gold, the shoulders and arms were silver, the belly was brass, and the legs were iron. And he saw as a stone cut without hands hit the statue in the feet and destroyed it. And of course, at the time of Christ, they were all looking for this stone cut without hands to hit this statue in the feet. And they knew what the statue was. At that time, they could see that Daniel's prophecy had been fulfilled. Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian Empire was the head of gold. The Medo-Persian Empire was the shoulders and arms of silver. The Greek Empire was the belly and thighs of brass, and the legs of iron was Rome. And they were living under Roman subjugation at that point. And they were looking for the Messiah to come and vanquish Rome like Judas Maccabee did, and even Judith had caused the armies of the invading army to go away. And so they were looking for somebody greater than them, to militarily and lead an army and vanquish Rome and fill the earth, but it didn't happen that way, did it? Jesus came and he suffered and died, rose from the dead, rose into heaven. So it wasn't fulfilled exactly how they thought it would. Rome, instead of being conquered and vanquished, they just kind of existed for a few hundred years and began to fizzle out on their own. And of course, the prophecy was fulfilled in that the message of Christ and the preaching of the kingdom, by the time the sixth letter had its fulfillment, had its parallel in history and fulfilled, the Great Awakening did indeed spread the gospel of the kingdom of Christ throughout all the world, and many people came to Christ. And now we're heading into the, we're already well into the hereafter portion of Revelation, and it's not being fulfilled as many theologians and scholars anticipated. Now, I must warn you at this point, there have been many scholars who attributed the times of their day as the fulfillment of prophecy, and it's been both crack scholars and crackpots who've done that, and many have been right, many have been wrong, and I'm just one more coming along saying, hey, look, these things are being fulfilled. I don't adhere to any of the pre-packaged eschatological points of view. Eschatological means end times. Eschatos is the Greek word for last, and so when you speak of eschatology, you're speaking of end times or last days things. And so I'm not pre this, post that, or anything. I refer to myself as a pan-eschatologist. I'm just going to wait and see how things pan out. Yeah, it's very funny. But really, that's the position I take. Because if I took a firm position, I'd be waiting for things to turn out how I anticipate. On the other hand, instead, what I do is I look at recent history and even current events, and I try to extrapolate if perhaps they're a fulfillment of prophecy. And what I'm going to share with you in the following sections is what I believe is the manifestation of the fulfillments of numerous things in Revelation. As a matter of fact, I think the first 4 seals, in Revelation there are 4 sevens, 7 seals, 7 trumpets, 7 thunders, and 7 vials of wrath. And I think the first 4 seals are history. They're finished. They're done. Now, I believe we're in the time of the 5th seal. Now, the 5th seal is very short, very brief. It's just 3 verses. But I believe much more is fulfilled in that. As a matter of fact, I think the Genesis 49 prophecy of Jacob is fulfilled in the 5th seal, and we're in the 3rd of 4 fulfillments of that prophecy now. Okay, I've run out my time with my little rambling on. So up next, the hereafter, as we get into Revelation chapter 4. God bless. I hope you tune in again. For now, have a great day.